yesterday's little activity that we were supposed to do here, we were creating, you should have filled in the table, okay, for the sine and cosine values at all of these angles from 0 to 360 or 0 to 2 pi. Whether you thought of them in degrees or radians didn't matter, okay? These are the values. I told you y'all could use your unit circle to come up with these, okay? But we were giving them to the nearest tenth. So remember, I gave you these two values on the left. The 0.7 and the 0.9 were the approximate values for root 2 over 2 and root 3 over 2. Then once we had all of that filled in, okay, we answered these questions. We looked at these values. We said the highest is 1, the lowest is -1 for both the sine and cosine columns. Okay, and we determined if we were to continue past 360, okay, the pattern would repeat. It would continue over and over and over. You'd hit the same values, just like when you would go around the unit circle, you just kept going to the same points over and over and over because it's cyclical. Now, I don't know if I had this on there yesterday or not, but I put these black bold lines to separate the table. Okay, the angle is the x value when we graph. Okay, and then the trig value is the y value when we graph. Okay, and then we did this as two separate. So there's a sine graph and then a cosine graph. Okay, so you should have checked your sine graph. Once all these blue points, we went through and plotted all these points on here. That's what's in blue. And we scaled the axes according to these instructions. Every little line on the horizontal axis was 15 degrees, and every little line on the vertical was 0.1. Okay, so this in blue is from 0 to 360, those points from that table. We said it would continue in the same pattern, so I went ahead and showed that it would keep going like this, and it would keep going and going forever. Okay, and we talked about how, yes, there can be values less than 0. Okay, we talked about negative angles last unit. And then we talked about the domain and the range. Okay, so the domain could be written with all real numbers, or you could write it in interval notation. And remember, parentheses are used in interval notation when you're not including the point, which you can't include infinity because you never reach infinity. And range is the low to high vertically, -1 to +1. And the brackets indicate that those are included in the function. Okay, so is everybody good? They got their sine function done? Okay, so this is the sine parent function. Okay, and then for cosine, if you plotted all the points from the table that were in pink, that were the cosine values, okay, this is what you should have come up with. So in pink, it is from 0 to 360. Okay, but I continue the pattern and it goes on and on and on, and it would go on and on and on to the left as well. Okay, so this is the graph you should have for cosine. If you need to double check this later, I'm going too fast right now for this reminder. This is posted, this completed version of this PDF is on It's Learning in the Unit 2 folder. Okay, when we compare the sine and cosine functions, they have the same domain and range, and it's literally the same curve. It's going the same wave. It's just like it's shifted over. Okay, the sine function on the y-axis started at 0, and this one's starting up at 1. Okay, so that point at 0 would be over here if this was sine. Okay, so it's like it just got shifted over a little bit. You'll see that? Any questions about the parent functions for sine and cosine? All right.